In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, we're going to talk about some potent, powerful processors for mobile devices with a very special guest from Intel. Next. Welcome back, my brothers and sisters, to yet another fine episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks live stream. As I noted earlier, we are going to be talking about some pretty powerful and potent processors from the folks at Intel that are targeted for mobile applications, but who knows? They might find their way into all kinds of stuff. Marco's here. Chris is here. Chris is going to be behind the knobs and dials because we have a very special guest from Intel joining us today. Marco, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I am actually just back from Intel. I was in Texas for my first trip in over 2 years. I got to see lots of Intel folks in person. It was really cool, but I think I'm recovered. I got a good night's sleep and I'm raring to go today.
I'm jealous of that good night's sleep. I did not get that. I got in late last night from sunny San Diego. Beautiful place to be for a couple days, by the way. But running short on the shut eye, and so I'll just try and I will be the half geek today because we have a very special guest with us from Intel who is full geek and a pretty smart guy. His name is Dan Rogers, Senior Director of Mobile Product Marketing at Intel. Welcome to the 2.5 Geek live stream, buddy.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be here.
Yeah. Good to have you with us. You've been with Intel for a while now. I think. Tell us, give us a little bit of your background, if you wouldn't mind, and then we'll talk a little bit about maybe what you're responsible for at Intel.
Sure. Yeah, and started as an engineer. Intel was kind enough to hire me 12 years ago. So started in engineering, spent the last 10 years in technical sales. And then 2 years after that, I've been basically just solely focused on building Alder Lake. So we're really happy to talk about that today.
Nice. Wow. So you started out as you said, a technical engineer?
Yeah, I was an engineer and then technical sales. I had the opportunity to work with some of our big PC customers in Taiwan and Cupertino. And
Gotcha.
Happy to be here today.
Nice. So it's sort of what I would call, I was a semiconductor sales engineer for about 20 years, and I brought a real smart guy with me called a field apps engineer. Was your previous role akin to that? You'd go to customers and help them understand your technology?
I was in your shoes, I think.
Okay.
Engineer, but I was talking too much, so
There you go. Well, that's all good. So, Senior Director of Mobile Product Marketing now, what does that entail for you? What's your purview? What's your responsibility in there? And then we'll dive into your baby Alder Lake. Yeah.
I've really had the privilege and pleasure and honor of working on Alder Lake for the last 2.5 years. So I joined, of course, like in the earlier phase of the program, design, architecture, design, and now here we're shipping and in the market. So it's been a great ride.
Nice. And mobile product marketing is basically go-to-market strategy, and any like help folks understand like what your day-to-day is, maybe like with the team.
Sure. Well, we work with some of the best and brightest all around the world, engineers, architects, validation teams, software teams, customer teams. And we have the privilege of bringing that all together on the product marketing side and bring it to our customers, of course, all of our partners around the world that are building incredible notebooks and laptops, and then ultimately to the people who buy these devices and enjoy the great performance that we brought here with 12th Gen.
Nice. Very cool. Well, yeah, we were excited, as a lot of folks were, and kind of surprised. I honestly didn't see it coming. Intel will drop a link in the chat now. Intel unveils 12th Gen Alder Lake-HX mobile CPUs with more cores and big performance gains. That was our headline. I just dropped that into I dropped it into the private chat. Let's drop it into the public chat. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah. So let's get into the heart of the matter here. But folks, chime in the chat, please. Please feel free to fire your questions for Dan. Certainly anything related to HX 12th gen Alder Lake-HX processors, and this technology specifically. Forward-looking stuff that has not been announced yet. Dan's probably not going to be able to answer your question, but we'll make an effort to kind of push the envelope without getting him into trouble, right, Marco?
Yeah, we always try to weasel some information out, but if it's unannounced, it's very unlikely we're going to get any details.
Yeah. And keep it civil in the chat, because Marco is our resident bouncer. He'll show you the exit if you're not a nice person and you get trollish.
We don't entertain the trolls around here, that's for sure.
Good stuff. Marco, I know you had some stuff top of mind, and I've got a laundry list of stuff that we can pepper poor Dan with here, but why don't you go ahead and dive in a little bit, and then I'll keep an eye on the chat for now. How's that sound?
Sure. We already have one question in the chat, but we'll save it up for once the conversation starts to get going here. So Dan, the 12th gen core HX series processors, they're not exactly the same as existing H series parts. These are essentially, you guys were able to take the same die that's used in the desktop Alder Lake parts and sort of cram it into different packaging and for mobile form factors. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that was done? Are the chips more selectively binned? Like what was the process to make this happen?
Sure. I can talk to you about the inspiration as to why we did this, right? So
Sure.
As you mentioned, we announced our H series back at CES in January, and it's been really well received. It's a really great processor for gaming and creating. But there's a little bit more left there. There's this other level that we wanted to achieve. And when we were working with our partners, we realized that for mobile workstations, for really high-end gaming systems, that we could get even additional I/O, additional memory, and of course, additional cores and performance. So we sought to do that. We leveraged as you mentioned, the technology from our desktop side, but we've repackaged it, put it into a mobile BGA package, which moves us from like about a 4 to a 2 millimeter Z height, which is important for notebooks, of course. And then retargeted the process technology so that it's more tuned for a 55 watt base specification or sustained operation, as opposed to desktop, right, which is 100 plus. So yeah, we're really excited about the product.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, obviously it's not going to sustain the same type of clocks as a desktop part, and there's much more thermal constraints to contend with in the mobile form factors. But performance, you're essentially the same core configuration as the 12900K on the desktop. We've seen in the past some of Intel's partners actually use desktop parts in some more limited release notebooks. Was this sort of released to address the needs of those customers? Were Intel customers sort of asking for something like this?
Yeah, there's been that experimentation in the past, certainly, right, of people using a socketed approach in a notebook. And while that's somewhat advantageous from a configurability point of view in the field, to really build a true mobile experience, you need to solder down to reach the Z heights, and as I mentioned, retarget to run at more mobile power levels. So for those two reasons, we decided to build the proper product. We call it HX, so maybe we can name the X here, like Extreme or Extended. Has many names, but it's really a completely different architecture, right? We don't just have a letter to denote maybe a slightly different flavor, different SKU. It's really a completely different platform that's built from the ground up for the most demanding notebook use cases there are, which is professional cases that scientists, engineers, people that rely on their device, not for what I do necessarily, sending emails and making PowerPoints, but people that are really doing extremely demanding tasks on their notebook and need that type of capability on the go and in the field where they can work on huge data sets.
Yeah, and actually,
Dave, looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, on a follow-on to that, and I know Marco, you were kind of probing on this as well. So it truly is a new architecture. My thought was that initially it was just a scaled down, tamed down version of like a 12900 or something like that. But you're saying actually you guys had to do some serious, I guess, I don't want to say augmentation, but it is a derivative, but seriously re-engineered for mobile platform and thermal and power envelopes there, right?
Yeah, it's a distinct product line. Of course the design is leveraged, right? So it's very similar to what we have on the desktop side. So it's the same technology, same heritage, a lot of the same feature set. In fact, the XY of the package is even similar, but it's a completely distinct package rather than the socket. It's balled out in the BGA package, much thinner, bare die, no lid, and slightly retargeted process so that it operates efficiently in the 45, 55 watt level at the low end.
Yeah. That's no small engineering feat to do that, because that's a pretty powerful chip in the hybrid architecture, 8+8, 8 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores. Yeah, good stuff. I know we got a couple of questions. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You can see how this sort of completes our lineup, right? We've in a way with 12th gen not only brought a lot of architecture to bear, but we've sort of reimagined the way that we're approaching the whole laptop market. So we have a scalable U series, a P series, and an H series, all sharing a same package design that's compatible across, with very distinct design points across that power range. And then we've complemented that now with this HX at the very top for the most demanding use cases.
Right. And different BGA pinout there. So it's not like you could have the same motherboard platform, I should say, and go to HX as well, right? So that's a different footprint there.
Yeah, our H series is now more of a true mobile solution. So it's an MCP with 2 chips, which gives it a lot of great power scalability, and it's got a bit bigger graphics, which is nice for, of course, integrated graphics designs, but even the Intel plus Intel use cases that we've talked about with our Arc launch. So there's some additional advantages that we brought with H series, and now we're complementing that with the 2-chip solution, which is like the athletic fit, right? Lots of room in there with the 2 chips, lots of I/O, lots of signals, totally unconstrained, 4 SSDs, 128 gigs of memory, right? So this is for the absolute most capability possible. That's what HX is about.
Nice. I like that. At the athletic fit. Good stuff. Marco, I know you've got more questions, and there are a couple questions in the chat. We want to go to the chat next, maybe. Oh, you're muted, buddy. You're muted.
I'm going to hold the chat for one more second because I do a little more background, and then the chat will fit in better with the discussion here. So we've kind of explained most of it already here. But so with the release of these parts, you already explained, it's the different dies than the existing H series. They're not just higher clocked variants than the H series that had already launched. Can you run through some of the specific differences? You mentioned already the support for more memory, but there's other stuff as well. ECC, the PCIe 5 hanging off the CPU. Can you explain some of the other differences that come with HX versus existing H series parts?
Sure. Yeah. First is I/O. So there's more on the north or on the CPU die. So there's a by 16 Gen 5 for either SSDs and or discrete graphics. Latest and greatest, very wide and fast, twice as fast versus, of course, the earlier spec. And there's also a Gen 4, so you get 20 total lanes on the north. And then in the south, that link, where it says DMI there by 8 Gen 4, that's twice as fast as we have on our H series. So there's a big wide pipe there down to the PCH, which offers additional I/O than broken out on the PCH. So similar to the desktop architecture. And this is critical, not just for, of course, like SSD attach and discrete graphics attach, but also to support our Thunderbolt 4 controllers, which of course require PCIe, but then can mux the displays from the integrated graphics as well as the discrete graphics on the platform externally right near the connectors at the edge of the platform. So that's the first point, is it's a much wider I/O design than what we have in our single package architectures for UP and H. Second is memory. So we have a full 2 DIMM per channel for 128 gig. Again, this is pretty key for the use cases we're talking about here in this segment. And then when you have very large data sets, you got to make sure that you have ECC support. So we offer ECC support on our vPro SKUs as well to ensure data integrity. Really important feature. And then finally, there's just more compute. So we have additional 2 cores, 16 cores total. So that provides about 10 to 20% additional multi-threaded performance depending upon the workload and the design.
Yeah,
Nice.
great. So just some quick nuts and bolts questions too. You may not be able to answer specifically for partners, but those, and this isn't really something that's going to impact today, but those PCIe Gen 5 lanes hanging off the CPU, they're configurable. So you can do by 16 or by 8 by 8, right?
Yeah, you can partition them as by 8 and by 8. So that's probably actually the most common use case that we'll see. So you can reserve a by 8 Gen 5. In fact, we showed one of the designs at Vision. I'm sure you'll see this coming to market as well. You can reserve that for a future Gen 5 SSD, and then connect the discrete graphics to a by 8 Gen 4 off that same PHY.
All right, that's exactly where I was going. So I was going to ask if we can expect to see machines where the GPU is actually either on the by 4 or by 8 Gen 5, and then we'll have super high speed storage off those remaining by 8. So that's likely going to be a possibility in a product.
Yeah, so it's by 16 or 2 by 8, and we're early, right? We've been early with the technology. It's one of the hallmarks of actually 12th gen across the board that we have the latest and greatest I/O and memory. Wi-Fi 6E, Thunderbolt 4, PCIe Gen 5, DDR5, LP5. So that was a super critical design principle for us going into this year, is we wanted to lead across all those platform technologies. So we're a bit early on our other H series, right? It's Gen 4, since that's just what's shipping today in the first half. On HX, since it's a bit more modular architecture, there's more configurability in general in these designs. We're essentially future-proofing.
Gotcha.
And I was actually, that's great stuff. And by the way, leading the charge, because I mean, with a processor, you can have real beefy cores, lots of performance, but you have to have high speed plumbing around it to take advantage of it in a lot of cases, whether it be graphics or storage or what have you. So yeah, kudos there for sure. I wasn't out at Vision, and I am playing a little bit of catch up, admittedly. Marco and or Dan, did you guys see machines? Were there machines on site that had this, or have you any announcements in terms of OEMs? I think one of the questions in the chat was, when will we see HX powered laptops in the marketplace? From James Pryor. How you doing, James? I don't.
So I did see live demo. There was a couple live demos in the tech showcase showing the performance running various applications. So I didn't actually get to play with an HX machine, but there were HX based machines being used for demos. Yes.
Yep, and we're in production. We've been in production actually for a little while now. So we'll see systems now this week, and over the next few weeks, you'll start to see all the systems coming to market. We shared a nice slide at the end of the reference material. There were some examples from our key partners. I don't want to steal all the fun and do their announcements for them, but just so you can get a flavor of the types of systems you'll see with the HX.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. That helps a lot. That's my catch-up slide right there. I would think I'm not seeing. Well, yeah, there you go. Dell Precision. I was going to say Dell Precision. Their line of machines has historically been real big on previous gen, like Xeon with ECC. This seems like a perfect fit for a product like that as well with Dell. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
This is essentially the replacement or the follow-on to what we had in Mobile Xeon in years past. We've simplified the brand structure a bit this year, so we just have a vPro brand for the mobile workstations and a core brand for the gaming systems shown here on the consumer side.
Nice. Excellent. Good. Thanks for that detail. A little bit of catch up there for me. Let's see. Yeah. And actually, on the gaming side, do you think this is going to push larger form factors, or is this, the intention, although obviously it's a 55 watt TDP, so it's going to take some more robust thermal solutions. But do you think it's going to push out the form factors as well in most cases, or are we talking still trying to stay fairly light? For obviously it's a different class of machine. It's either a workstation or a real high-end gaming rig. Any commentary or color there?
It shouldn't in general. I mean, that wasn't our intention to distort anything in the market, right? Our whole mobile portfolio, we really have something for everybody, right? So we have 9 watt all the way up to now this 55 watt segment. But for those systems that are 21 millimeters and above Z height, actually it's reasonably thin relative to the capability you're getting here. across a CPU and of course like the GPUs that would typically ship in a system like this. Yeah, it's a great fit. And there's power scalability, so you can sustain about 45 watts on the low side. That's what we call our minimum PL1 or our minimum sustained power that we suggest in spec. And then of course can scale upwards very nicely, and you'll enjoy that additional performance up to 100 plus watts, either turbo or sustains.
Cool. Very cool. There you go. Chris is showing some performance metrics in a few games with a 3080 Ti on board too. That sounds like a killer config. Mark, what else we got? We got plenty of questions streaming in, and
yeah,
also
I'm gonna shift the order that I had my questions written down in, because we got a bunch of questions on overclocking and XTU and stuff. But before we get there, or follow on to what you and Dave were just talking about, do you have any insight on if there's any 13-inch or 15-inch form factors coming, or are they all the larger machines?
Generally larger. I wouldn't be completely surprised if we see a 14-inch here and there, but generally 16, 15, 16, 17. 17, of course, seems like a very, very natural fit for this type of product. On gaming, we've had a couple of features here that I think are great for those use cases. Certainly, the 2 cores are helpful there for certain titles. And then we offer overclocking support, at least at some level, across the entire stack. That's nice, especially in the memory domain. A little bit faster memory certainly helps the gameplay. So that's a nice feature that comes with the HX processor line as well.
Yeah.
And in the
oh, sorry, Dave.
No, I was going to say this is an Alienware X series, or Lenovo Legion Natural, those kind of machines. Good stuff. Sorry, Michael, go for it.
I'll say, so related to the overclocking, and so just to give some clarity, if you check out, we have a slide in the article on the site. You could see the whole breakdown of parts which support overclocking, full overclocking, or partial core overclocking. With these processors, Intel, with some of them, they're fully unlocked. You have memory overclocking, efficient core overclocking, and performance core overclocking. Some it's just partial core overclocks. But you guys also have a new updated version of Intel Speed Optimizer and a new version of XTU, the extreme tuning utility for these. Can you explain what people can do with those tools and these processors?
Sure. Just tools to help overclocking. They've been updated to support, of course, the E-cores in the architecture, which is new with 12th gen, as well as DDR5. Probably most important feature in a notebook as opposed to a desktop is actually on the memory side. That's the most common use. So we support full memory overclocking across the board on every single SKU. We got some feedback from the community on our H series. Right? It's like, hey, I need overclocking everywhere, right? Just not on the top SKU. So this time we've opened it up across the board, and I'm committed to continue to open up our overclocking support on mobile as we go forward.
Now, is that more partners asking for it, or consumers? Like, are partners going to use that to differentiate, or is it more to offer buyers flexibility if they want to tweak, or both?
I think it's both. We definitely get some feedback from the community, right? That we want to, obviously we listen to very carefully. And then certainly our partners take advantage of the memory overclocking, and in many gaming systems, and even some mobile workstations. But certainly in gaming systems, you'll see memory overclocking out of the box. So it's just a benefit that you can get running above the specification day zero.
Gotcha. And a related note, we just had a question come in from Steve's asking, does overclocking include undervolting as well? Because if somebody wants to quiet the system down or save power, could you turn things down if you wanted, since it's fully unlocked?
Yeah, I don't believe so, but we do have, of course, various knobs to do that. There's the different modes with the Windows operating system, and of course the various utilities that our partners offer, and we work closely with them to ensure the right user experience, whether it's in a quiet mode, a balance mode, or a performance mode. There's a lot of knobs there to tune to get the right user experience.
Got it. And we have another follow-up to the memory overclocking. Are memory voltages also unlocked, or is that something only OEMs are going to be able to tweak voltages, and it's just memory multipliers that are unlocked? Do you know?
Yeah, that question's beneath me. I don't know. I have to check on that one.
Okay, gotcha. No sweat. Let me see if I missed any. Give me 1 second here.
There's a couple. James has a couple of interesting ones.
Yeah, I'm scrolling.
PCIe. Yeah, there's a ton of them. PCIe Gen 5 bifurcation splitting. Want to toss that one in?
go.
Yeah, could those could the PCIe 5 lanes be split so you had you'd have by 8 for the GPU and by 4 by 4 for storage? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, not a possibility this generation. So it's
Okay.
there's 2 PHYs, so it can be 2 by 8. That's the option.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you had a follow on PCIe Gen 5 validated devices. What's your sense? That's a good kind of high level general question. What's your sense on the maturity of the PCIe Gen 5 ecosystem? I mean, obviously we're in the early phases, or the early gestation period now, but I think we've heard some rumors of GPUs. But what's your sense when that's going to make more of a material impact on performance and available technologies in the marketplace?
Yeah. So without commenting too much on third party deliverables, of course.
Sure.
In general, we're early, but I think we're also at the right time with the technology. We're starting to see some SSDs show up in various segments in the industry more generally, and we want to be ready for that when that starts to hit the PC in the future.
Yeah, no, I think what were we saying? Something like 13 or 14 gigs a second over a PCIe Gen 5 SSD. That's juicy stuff. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, and we've seen dual Gen 4s in some machines doing similar. So it would be wild to have dual Gen 5s. But
I was going to say 2 Gen 5s in a RAID. That'd be pretty cool.
RAID 0, yeah. Awesome. You're talking 30, yeah. We can handle that.
Team.
Yeah. Let's go specific on just some product clarity. Like if Chris, if you brought up the slide that shows the SKU stack with all the features, if you're looking at this first wave of HX processors, you have some that are branded 50 HX and just 00 HX. So 12, 900 HX or 12 950 HX. Could you just explain what the differences are? Because in terms of clocks and cores, they look very similar. Can you explain how those lineups differ?
Yeah, biggest difference is if you kind of scroll to the right there on your view, you see the V Pro column. So we offer, which is in general our strategy. We usually have a V Pro corporate focus SKU for in this segment, for example, mobile workstations that need that security and manageability. And then we have a consumer SKU or a gaming SKU here, the 12900 HX. That one's fully unlocked and tuned for those use cases.
Got it. So the 12900, the ones ending in 00, most likely going to be in gaming notebooks. The ones ending in 50 in mobile workstations or machines where vPro and ECC are required. Easy enough, right?
Yep.
All right, got it.
It's sort of a question that I think I know the answer to. Obviously, your integrated graphics here are scaled down slightly versus some of the the other Alder Lake mobile solutions in the marketplace for thin and light. The strategy there was likely mostly paired with discrete solutions, obviously for these kinds of workstation class machines. Yeah. Is there still a benefit? I would think there's still a benefit for some of the deep link technologies that you have for like hyperencode or what have you. Yep. With that 32 EU. Yeah, maybe let's talk about that a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, integrated is there, not so much for the 3D, although there is of course a 3D component. But as you mentioned, like you still get the full media support, which is great on 12th gen, and the display as well as for the display switching cases to save power with the integrated panel. So yeah, it's a nice optimized graphics there. Of course with the general pairing with discrete almost always in this segment. On our H series, we offer the larger 96 CUs, which is cool because historically we had a smaller graphics in H series, and now we have this bigger graphics, a full graphics, and that's nice for a variety of reasons. One is that there's a bit of a trend where we're starting to see a higher power thin and light design points taking off. So you can build a 28 watt with P series or a 45 watt with H series with integrated graphics without any compromise. So that's nice. And then of course you can do various power sharing techniques, or you can have your encoding across the two different engines. This is super helpful.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think, by the way, just as an aside and not, associated with this conversation, but I think we're all excited about Meteor Lake and that announcement, and the fact that it has next gen graphics on board, integrated graphics on board there too. That's going to be fun stuff for Thin and Lights, I would think as well.
For what he can say. So yeah, we have a couple of performance related questions. Chris, can you pop up just one of the performance graphs? We can probably riff on what's in there.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so we have a question directly from someone asking, I'm probably going to pronounce it Azong. I don't want to say it in case it's something dirty here. Asking about how much faster it is versus a 12700H. Now, the 12700 is not in these charts here, but you can see performance scaling across a bunch of different processors. You want to just give some insight into performance targets and how HX stacks up versus the existing H series and the competition, if you want to riff on that as well.
Do I have 12.7 on the next slide? Maybe.
Let's look. Was it on there?
Maybe.
I can't see it there.
We might have it.
It's all 12.900.
On the
we may not.
I think we might, but I can speak to it verbally too. So, in general, versus the 12.700, you'll see since that's a click down from the Core i9, so you'll see a little bit of single-threaded performance, and then about 10-20% more multi-threaded performance from the additional core and thread count.
Yep.
Got it. Let me see if I have that slide, because I have the deck here, and I could even share that. But go ahead, Marco.
I was going to say, while you're looking, Dan, does the platform also support LP DDR5, or is it just straight DDR5?
Yeah, it does not. So we share as the heritage is from the desktop side. So we share the same memory controller. So it's a DDR4, DDR5. We took the approach with 12th gen to support all the technologies as we transition. So this has been pretty important for us to support DDR4, DDR5, and then on our UP and H series, we support LP4 and LP5. And in this way, we can address the entire market this year. So we're not intending to ship 12th gen, just to a select number of designs, right? We're reaching out to hundreds of designs and coming to scale, manufacturing as much as we possibly can here to bring this product everywhere this year.
Gotcha. And over and above the increased, core counts in here, we have a question from James about AI and ML inference capabilities. Anything special going on there in that regard?
Yeah, similar to 11th gen. So we have some interesting things in the pipe there, but we continue support, for example, like VNNI on the IA and DP4A on the GT. So we continue that support from 11th gen. We have AVX2 support as well, more cores. That's helpful. So similar to 11th gen.
Got it.
Yeah, I found it. I don't know if I can. I don't know if this helps, Chris. I don't know if you want to try and add that to the. That has the 12.7 in the stack, and don't mind the watermark on the left. But yeah, there you go. There's the comparison there, and the M1 Max in the mix as well. It's nice to see you guys comparing well versus the Apple folks.
Yep, and there's a lot of dimensions of performance benefit here in the performance hybrid architecture, as we call it in 12th gen. So it's mentioned in the industry and in the media. You can see the MT gain, but it's also nice to take a look at the ST benefit as well. The P core that we have in 12th gen, codenamed Golden Cove is the IP name. It's really the highest performance core in the market today. Full stop. So you can see that showcased on this slide as well as the earlier slide with the spec single threaded comparison.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there's so much, like, for the people that asked Apple related questions in the chat, there's so much nuance to the Apple comparison that we could probably fill an entire podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the other thing to consider with an Intel core versus one of Apple's cores is if you run a single thread, you're utilizing half of a P core, right? Because they can do 2 threads. So is a single thread comparison fair? Maybe not, because you can do twice as much work on a P core than you can on Apple's. And there's also the graphics to consider. Apple's, even though it's one piece of silicon, it's really got a big giant GPU on there, like a discrete GPU. So there's so much discussion around that. Maybe we can have Dan on for a totally separate discussion about that one day. There's so much nuance.
Marco, really?
What was that?
Nuance and benchmarking, really?
Yeah, like who'd have thought?
Yeah, look at the end of the day, both in the data that we share, and I'm sure you guys will have some great reviews as you get more and more 12th gen systems going too. But if you look at across the reviews, around the world, different devices and so forth, right? What this generation is all about for us is it's just a huge improvement in CPU performance across the board, right? Across all the use cases, whether those are single thread cases, multi-thread cases, sustained cases, turbo burst cases. We tried to address essentially the whole landscape of what runs on the core in a single generation.
Yep. And I will add, just for a little tease for later for the viewers, that I actually have a 12th gen system with ARC A370 graphics on board that I am now kicking the tires on. And that is not a secret. That's coming. We will have some performance numbers there, early performance numbers on what I would call a pre-production system, but looking pretty strong, looking pretty good. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just shift gears a little bit because the dual Thunderbolt setup on HX. Can you give some color as to why you guys went that route and sort of what it's going to enable for customers or even partners? I'm assuming maybe more multi-monitor setups, some external docks for crazy storage setups. Why the decision to do dual Thunderbolt 4?
Yeah, so first of all, we have the I/O to support it. So unlike on the mobile side where we have 4 Thunderbolt 4 controllers natively integrated right against the fabric, here they're external. The benefit of being external is that you can mux the discrete graphics display relatively easily to keep the user experience sort of seamless. That you get either display plus the rest of the Thunderbolt 4 value proposition over a single wire. So that's kind of nice for those dock cases, as you mentioned. Many folks who are buying a mobile workstation will have a multi-dock setup, multi-monitor setup, like whether in their home or especially these days, right? But in the office or on location in the field. So it's a nice feature. And
with that kind of setup, you're not limited to just 2 additional external monitors, right? You can do more because they can be running off the discrete or the integrated, correct?
Yeah, certainly on the I/O side, right? You have tons of I/O here. So then you're limited to just the display capabilities of whichever pipe you're running on, either discrete or the internal.
Gotcha. Cool.
And I would think.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would think this platform would lend itself really well to, and I know you can't speak about forward-looking products, but I would think it would, lend itself really well to NUC-based solutions or maybe all-in-ones. We've seen many times all-in-one products from, Lenovo, Dell, all those guys, HP, use mobile platforms, and I would think this would be a natural for those as well, right?
Yeah, we're blurring the lines a bit here between mobile and desktop. So you could imagine a really small volume desktop would be a great design point as well, or a thin all-in-one, or a really heavy duty notebook. This is sort of blurring the lines between the two worlds, where you need huge amounts of performance and capability, and memory, storage. But you also need to reach a certain thinness in your Z height or in your form factor.
Yeah, I would think the folks that like the all-in-one platform, it would be a killer setup from one of those, from a Dell or an HP, Lenovo. Real good match for that. So I would not be surprised, although I know you can't. You got to let your partners make their announcements.
I'd buy one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would too.
Are you using any machines now? Like, I know you can't pick a favorite, but have you actually used, production ready systems and can give some, some insight into, behavior, performance, and any sort of differences you feel versus existing H series?
Yeah, without naming the names, since I happy to work with everybody. But
yeah.
The thing that's most exciting for me, since I'm not, I'm definitely not a pro gamer. Or a 3D content creator. My needs are a bit more modest. But the segment that's most interesting to me this generation is actually our new P series, which is almost enthusiast class performance, but really in a thin and light form factor. And you're starting to see some of those systems and reviews start to hit the market now. That's been mine. I have one over here on the side of the desk here that I've been exploring. But it's really it's a kind of a neat product this generation that's really distinct from anything we've had prior. It's about twice the performance of our previous 28-watt product at the same power. Or said differently, it's like the same performance as our previous H series at half the power. So it's a really unique design point, and there's been a lot of experimentation with our partners to figure out how to use this interesting design points. And I think you guys will be impressed when you see how these things perform.
Yeah, actually, I just dropped a link in the chat to the Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro 360, which has your Core i7-1260p on board. Yeah, great machine. I was actually, it's really nice how they, Samsung brings together a beautiful machine, whether it's, that OLED display or what have you, pen support. And then, yeah, I mean, I think it's, I know it's a 16-inch machine or 15.6-inch FHD display, but still weighing in at 3.1 pounds with a 68 watt hour battery on board too. So yeah, no, pretty slick stuff and lots of power. But go ahead. Sorry.
And the thermal mechanical guys are honestly getting so good. So we want to keep giving them a bit of a challenge. The amount of power and performance that our partners are able to pack into like a shockingly thin and light design, and even quiet design in certain modes. It's really impressive. So we didn't want to hold back. We saw an opportunity to push a lot more performance into the form factor. So we took that opportunity.
Yeah. And we did see the performance. I mean, if you look at, certainly, whether it be light duty web-based stuff and like a speedometer test to heavier duty stuff like a Cinebench test, you're talking, dramatically better performance in single thread versus 11th gen. And, I don't know, I'd have to do the math real quick, but something like, 40% gains in heavy duty multi-threading stuff. So really, really good stuff all along. Cool, Mark.
I probably should. I probably should ask this earlier, but you just spurred the question with the discussion you two were just having. Is the newer package here for the HX versus the desktop? There's no integrated heat spreader. It's a smaller package. It's a lower Z height, and now obviously notebook manufacturers, there's severe thermal constraints to deal with. But is there? It's easier to cool this chip, right, with the new packaging and without the heat spreader.
Well, the biggest thermal challenge in a notebook is the Z height, right? So the more room you have between your keys and your component, essentially, right, the better your thermal performance will be. So removing that 2 millimeter plus of Z delta that you see here between the LJ package for the desktop and the BJ package for notebooks, pretty key because it allows you to cool the chip properly within the notebook form factor.
Yeah, I know this is not a discussion that we could have, but that opens up some interesting possibilities. Should, someone decide to do a crazy form factor, you have that essentially direct die cooling. There might be some fun stuff that could happen in that regard. The next question, I've been asking lots of guests this question after a product launch. I put you on the spot a little bit. It might be kind of weird question, but you guys launch your new baby. The press writes about it. I'm sure you guys read as many of the articles as you can and digest as much of the coverage as you can. Is there anything that the tech press missed? Like if you could speak directly to consumers or in our audience like you are right now, what do you want to tell them that may not have been covered in some of the press articles that are out there?
Sure. I have a few things I'd love to.
Good question.
Okay. I think first is that there's like two natures of our performance hybrid architecture this generation, right? So one is, of course, that it's very computationally dense. There's more cores, there's more threads, and they're efficiently organized, sufficiently designed in per watt and per area with our new architecture. And that's fairly straightforward to demonstrate, to benchmark, to see the value. But actually, what I'm most excited about is something that we have a slide, or we also had some demos at Vision, and it's something that we're sort of almost learning and continuing to uncover, like this really unique value proposition. And it's what I refer to as the asymmetric nature of the architecture. This concept of having a foreground task and a background task happening concurrently on your system. Because in the real world, you're often, we often talk about multi-threaded performance, but all those threads are perfectly symmetric, right? They're doing exactly the same thing. And that's not the way a real workflow actually works in most cases. You're doing many, many things at the same time, but they're quite different in nature, right? Some of them have high quality of service requirements, some are low, some are quite high utilization, some are low utilization. And with the work that we've done in software with Microsoft, we're now able to much more optimally handle those real world concurrent cases and actually deliver experiences that just frankly weren't quite possible before. So you could think of a case where you may need to kick off a heavy render or heavy encode, and that needs to run for a little while. And that would have been maybe a walkaway event before, right? You go get a cup of coffee or whatever you need to do and then come back later. Now you can just simply minimize that window, let that run very efficiently on the E-cores in the background, and then stay productive, do whatever other tasks you need to do in the foreground, and you maintain a nice quality of service. Your system stays responsive. So this is the first use case that I'd highlight.
That's actually, that was a demo. I should have brought that up. That was a demo I actually saw live. I'm going to forget the guy's name, and I think he was with Autodesk, but I actually saw a demo live at Vision, live on stage, where the gentleman was importing a massive point cloud in the background. So he was importing a point cloud, minimized that where that would previously have sucked up all of the resources on the system, minimized it. It was automatically moved to the E-cores, and his P-cores were still free while he was working on an adjustment to a CAD design that would ultimately be merged with that point cloud so they can test the transport of a vehicle, across to make sure the vehicle was going to fit. It was actually a really cool demo.
Yeah, and this is like a different concept of performance, but for the people whose livelihoods depend on these devices, right? These are huge improvements in their workflow. Of course, you want your encode and render performance to scream, right? And 12th Gen definitely does that. But it's a much deeper user experience benefit to you when you can do multiple things at the same machine and stay productive and execute all of your workflows concurrently. This is a big change.
Yep. Yeah. And I think I may have misunderstood or I didn't fully digest it. You can also tweak that behavior. Like if you're in balanced mode, it'll do that. But if you're in performance mode, you can just use all cores across a workload, right?
Yeah, right. There's some user configurability there, so it will behave differently. This is kind of the magic of Thread Director in a lot of ways, right? We could have built sort of a very unsophisticated static rules-based thing where, okay, you do this and it always goes over here. But that's not how it works at all, right? It's contextual. It's relative to the power envelopes, the slider settings, the different power modes that a user may or may not be in. And so it will behave differently depending upon your requirements. For example, when a window is minimized, this is probably the most readily visible way to observe this. When you minimize a window, it will actually reduce the quality of service and move that off to the E-cores. And as I mentioned, this is sort of like early days in this architecture. We're really proud of what 12th Gen can do performance-wise. But these more advanced workflows that we're studying now, we'll continue to evolve this with future OS releases as well. So you can expect that this behavior will get more and more and more advanced, more sophisticated as we learn more about these use cases.
That's interesting. I do a lot of sort of heavier lifting on the creative side here as well, on occasion, whether it be producing video or what have you. And I haven't thought to take an application that's heavy like that and just minimize it, because historically it's going to tap in a symmetric system, a non-hybrid system, it just tap everything. Yeah, it makes you it changes the use case. Not the use case, but the way you would utilize the system. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, and actually for the viewers, I did misspeak. That the Cinebench number was actually almost 65% higher, not 40. So,
and just a reminder to everybody watching, we're coming up on the hour. If you have any more questions, put them in the chat now, because we're going to be wrapping soon. So if you want to chat with Dan directly, now's your chance.
Yeah, now's your chance. Do we miss anything in the chat? I'm trying to think of
there was lots of chatter that wasn't directly questions, and some questions that we kind of answered through the discussion already. I don't think we missed anything. If we did, ask again. So if you asked earlier and we didn't get to it, ask it again, because that means I did scroll past it and missed it. But I think we're good.
Yeah, there's a pretty deep one on Thunderbolt 5 with PCIe Gen 5. We already know future Thunderbolt 5 will do 80 gigabits per second. using PAM4 signaling. Any news about Thunderbolt 5 in that application? Is that I don't know if we're asking that right. What do you think about that, Marco? Is that?
I don't think we're going to get Thunderbolt 5 news today.
Yeah, that's the first thing. But anyways, okay.
Does that spur anything interesting you want to
Yeah,
say? Dan?
yeah.
I thought we were going to keep all the roadmap questions to CPUs.
Right, yeah, you're
all
right.
right, cool. Well, it's IO platform too, but yeah, I got you.
Cool.
All right. And are there any HX laptops offering OC? Yes, we've said that.
Yeah, for sure.
Steve's, it was worth a try. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I guess that pretty much wraps us up, unless we have any more questions in the chat.
Nope, that was
Dan,
it.
yeah, Dan, anything else you'd like to offer? When I know you said these machines are going to be showing up in the marketplace. Any number of machines that you're specifically excited about? And I know you love all your children equally and all that good stuff, but any thoughts there, kind of what you're looking forward to on some of the machines that have been teased?
Yeah, I think people will be surprised actually how modern some of these form factors are, even though the of course the power is there, the performance is there. But some of these form factors are actually quite nice, particularly on the mobile workstation side, like very modern. Gaming performance, I think, will surprise people. A lot of gamers are also content creators. This is a huge trend. So if you're a gamer who wants not just the absolute fastest frame rates, but you need a real top end compute for your video work, this is a great choice. And then maybe for me too, like one thing that I think not talked about maybe as much with the 12th gen family, but maybe should be, is we have a great low power lineup too. Our 9-watt family and our 15-watt family. This is a really optimum configuration for more lightly threaded work. For example, like photo work, office, productivity cases, web browsing. We really tailored that configuration with the idea of responsiveness being top of mind, moving the background tasks to the E-cores and maintaining a real like super responsive high performance experience with the 2 performance cores. So I think you guys will be interested to see how those review and come to market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing those as well. And then Tim says the gamer creator market is huge. We would certainly agree. And I think, sort of like a hybrid of that is the streaming market. I would think this HX family is a natural for that, for somebody that needs to game and stream on a mobile platform, or maybe doesn't want to have a big clunky desktop to deal with. Seems like a natural for that as well, right?
Yeah, a lot of streamers actually have 2 PCs set up. Like that's not uncommon for certain cases. So we've been tooling around that with the lab. Hopefully, maybe I'll come back. We can talk more about that. But we're starting to explore that too, to see like how does this really high performance hybrid architecture handle those particular use cases as well. Gaming and creating is near and dear to my heart. It's like in a way, it's like the center of the industry. It's what drives everything forward. So I think we built a perfect architecture for that community.
Cool stuff. Well, we will look forward to getting our hands on one of those machines in the near future. We'll have to be, pinging the email inboxes of Dell and Lenovo and all those guys and try and get something in here soon. So stay tuned to Hot Hardware for that. We will definitely be reviewing it. In the meantime, again, I've got that 12th gen system with ARC under the hood. Going to be looking at that next. Who knows? Maybe we can even get one of these OEM partners to put up a giveaway for that, right, Marco? We do giveaways
that
quite often here. Yeah. Maybe an HX giveaway somehow, if we can work that out.
We know who to ask.
Yeah, Dan, unfortunately, you won't be eligible to win that, but what are you going to do? So, but thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure meeting you, and a pleasure kicking around HX technology and the product line with you. Dan Rogers from Intel, Senior Director of Mobile Product Marketing, and good stuff. Great to learn a little bit more about how things tick, and we appreciate your time.
Yep, and we're not done. We got a little more coming later this year too. So we'll, this is the end of our 12th gen journey. We sort of saved the best for last on the mobile side, but certainly the team's staying busy, and we'll have a lot more to share too as we go later this year.
Excellent. Love that attitude. Yeah, bring it. So good stuff. Dan Rogers from Intel. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate your time. Viewers, hit thumbs up and subscribe if you would be so kind. You find us on the web at hothardware.com, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardware, Hot Hardware Vids. We're there as well. Again, subscribe, like, so you can get notified when we go live on the next one. But it has been a pleasure to talk with our friends from Intel once again. We usually like to bring manufacturers, big name OEMs like Intel that are making a difference in the marketplace. We'd like to have them on to talk tech, and this was a pleasure. Dan Rogers, Senior Director of Mobile Product Marketing from Intel. Thank you so much. And everybody else, thanks so much for stopping by. We'll catch you on the next one.